Greetings and salutations, my friend. I am Jeremy Tank, and today we're going to be doing a short trip through the process with this case study for Ember in Shadows by Amber Manzer. It is a book, but when Amber came to me, it was more than that. It was really this vision that she has for her life, for her future, for her brand, as well as this series of books that she's working on. And I introduced Amber to the idea of more than just the cover, really building her brand and what she wants for the future and how she wants that to be and how she wants it to look and feel and live. And this is my branding process. I've been in branding for about 5 or 6 years now, just in my own company, and I've been doing branding for over 20 years as a professional. So I've had a lot of experience really building these bigger ideas. But I find that a lot of smaller people I work with, a lot of consultants, coaches, authors in this case, they really haven't thought too much about the bigger picture. And that is really the crux of what I love helping people do, is thinking through that bigger picture, thinking through what it means to themselves, and really inspiring themselves to take the next steps of their journey. So here we're going to jump right into this. So this process is using a branding process I call behavioral branding, because it's really utilizing the psychology of influence, both visually and through the words, to excite ourselves, and by exciting ourselves, excite everybody around us who can be our audience and everybody who should be our audience. So like I said, this is for a friend of mine. I actually met her in high school. I lost track through the years, and she found me and found out I was doing branding and asked me about this book cover for her brand new book that she finished writing called Ember in Shadows. And it's a fantasy novel with a few romantic subplots going through it, so it gets kind of naughty sometimes. But you know what? That's great, because there's lots of audience for that these days. Every kind of book has an audience, and she was super excited to write it. And apparently it's I didn't get a chance to read it, but it is apparently like several hundreds of pages long. And it's the first in the trilogy. So she not only needed to think about this cover, she needed to think about the other covers and how to have them read as a totality, as one unit, as one brand, as one idea, as one concept, as one vision that pulls everything together. But not just that, but something for herself as well, for how she as an author might grow and might be seen, and in turn how she as an author could support her audience and really bring them into the fold and create this tribe of what it was she is building. So through this behavioral branding process, we identified not just cover ideas, but also how they can stand out. Like, what is everybody else doing, and what are the common? There are actually a bunch of different cover designers online, specialists in cover design. But they vary in what they ask for, and they vary in what they think are the best ideas or how to do things, and really finding the alignment between what Amber wanted for her covers, not just cover, but covers, and what everybody else can offer, and how to pull that together was really, really pivotal in what we were doing. We also looked at her colors. We also imagined who it is she is writing for, right? We need to know who she's writing for, where they're going to be found, whether it's on Amazon. She actually had this idea of great local meetups and local other places that she could go and talk to people who would be in this type of audience. And yeah, it was is really a fulfilling process with her, because it was really about how to make her passion into her life. And that's a gradual transition, but you know what? It's great to jump into it. So before we go a little bit farther, let me just go ahead and tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Jeremy Tank. I am the owner of ThinkTankCreative, and ThinkTankCreative is all about branding. And branding is helping someone create a vision of the future and then make that vision by comparing them to everything else and helping them stand out, helping them really embrace that vision and start be able to take steps right towards it. And like I said, I've been doing this for a little little over 20 years now. I started in advertising and moved into corporate marketing and pharma marketing and software marketing. I do have a couple of degrees in design. I am very well versed in design. My career has primarily been in the design end. So I understand how type, how color, and how context affect the story when somebody sees a visual, when somebody really grasps something. I deeply understand how that communication takes place and the effects of it in the brain, because my hypnotherapy training really shows me that it's the words and the pictures that create the feeling in the brain, and a feeling plus all of the sensory input, the ideas, the colors, the pictures, all of that comes together and creates a memory. And memory, wow, that's one of the most powerful things ever, right? Memory is what helps us know what stories are, and people, and it drives everything in our lives, really. The emotional context of who we are and where we are drives our motions, our acts, our deeds every single day. I think it's interesting that my wife is a doctor of acupuncture and Chinese medicine. I actually learned a lot about acupuncture and Chinese medicine as she was going through the several years, the 7 years of school to become a doctor, and it influenced my life in terms of energy, in terms of frequency, in terms of the law of attraction, in terms of understanding actually how the brain and the body work together to create our future. And it really is the reason that I work in branding, because it's that vision, that energy, that frequency that we step into by imagining first and then creating all of the pieces. And this is just a little Easter egg. Tank is not my given name. It is not the name I was born with. It is not I call it my bachelor name. Women have a maiden name. I guess men can have a bachelor name. If you want to know that, go ahead and, put a comment in and say, tell me that story, because I really want to know. It's just a fun little Easter egg. Just to let you see, like, the different types of businesses I have worked with in the past, everything from the Arizona Governor's Council on Spinal and Head Injury to Quantum Car Rental to Agave Open, which was um, a charity, a fundraiser. Lately, I've been working with smaller businesses in the Seattle, Washington area, like Bastier's Haunted Trails, Crystal's Healing Touch, Seagull Scientific, which is a global software company, but their headquarters are in Bellevue, Washington, as well as realtors, the veteran team, Gem Setter. I've worked kind of just all over the place, and it's because I help create this big picture vision, and everybody needs that, because as soon as you have that big picture vision, then every single step is easier to take. And the way I look at that is I serve business by creating targeted, impactful work focused on your goals and customers. And we get there first by imagining that big picture, right? Because then we can do the work that is goal focused. And we do this across multiple touch points to help you reach your goals. And in this case with Amber, her goal was the book cover, but also it was establishing what needs to be figured out for a website, what needs to be figured out for, other materials that she could sell with the book to increase her revenue, to increase her profits, to increase opportunities for her to, stop working a day job, to really start living her life, her passion through the books. And all of these different things, they have different names and different categories. Strategy, branding and design, production, and consulting are sort of the big categories where all of this stuff falls into, and it's really dependent for me on what my client needs and putting it all together, because really a lot of this is the same stuff, just with different names, and different agencies charge tons of prices. Like, I will tell you that strategy, all of this strategy is part of the behavioral branding process. The manifest design process is is inherent in behavioral branding, because when we tell the brain to start building something, it starts to manifest and make choices through the subconscious that wants it, that is enthused by it. And strategy, all of that stuff in one column, you know, when you're working with a huge agency, they're going to charge 30, 40, 50,000 dollars just for a chunk of that. And really, it's just strategy. It's just thinking it through about where you want to go and how you want to do it. That's what it's super exciting to me. I did mention the Manifest Design process. Manifest Design is my Facebook group. It is a free Facebook group. I give away all of the tools in building that strategy, building that big scale vision. So if you're interested in learning some of these tools, go ahead and go to Facebook and find Think Tank Creative on there, and ask to join the Manifest Design Experience. And you get all of the exercises, and basically it's this book, Behavioral Branding Secrets, which are 30 different exercises to help you build the brand that you want to build, that are mindfully designed to help you get to where you want to go. And it starts with vision. And I think that the Simon Sinek has probably the best way of putting it. Before we can build the world we want to live in, we have to imagine it. Because greatness starts with a clear vision of the future. And really, this whole process is getting clarity for the who's the audience, who are they, where are they, how do you want to talk to them, how can you help them? Because and this is me right here. This is me thinking about this. Life is a series of choices which lead to everyday experiences. You can get up and not think about it, or you can get up and sort of go, okay, I'm going to have a good day today. And when you tell yourself that, your brain hears it. Again, this is my hypnotherapy, my mind-centric training that has taught me that when you think about it, your subconscious hears it and starts to make decisions subconsciously that drive you in a certain direction. So life is a series of choices which lead to everyday experiences, and 95% of those choices are subconscious, meaning that only 5% of your life choices are conscious. So without guidance, our subconscious is driving 95% of our daily experience. And the rest, the 5%, they just sort of adapt to what's going on. And what happens is that it tends to lead to a lot of variety in life. It tends to allow our emotional centers, our emotional quotient or emotional intelligence to just sort of be batted around a little bit. And I represent that here with these colors because that's really what we're doing, is when we don't set the tone, when we don't set a vision for a moment, for a day, for a week, for a year, for all of these goals, even the really passionate ones for ourselves, we just sort of adapt and flow and go with it, get angry, get sad, get happy, and it all is very disjointed. But to have the experience you want, and in this case, this was Amber's experience. She wanted the experience of building her brand and her books so that she can start to live that, her passion, as her life. You have to excite your mind to a specific goal. And in this case, for Amber, it's this goal at the very end. What do you want when your books are published, and your first 3 books that she has already written, when they are finally published and out in the world and people are getting them and you are sharing them and you have your website and you have everything up? What is that life like? What is it like when you get up in the morning? What is it like when you go to bed at night? What do you do every single day? What thrills you? What excites you? Why are you doing any of it in the first place? What made you write the book, Amber? Right? That's the exciting part. What is going on? And so we have to imagine that. We have to write it down. And then your mind will automatically help build it. That's the cool part. Because when we tell your subconscious mind with your conscious mind and any unconscious parts of your mind where you want to go and why you want to go, because it's a passion, because it drives your desire, because it will make life easier, because greater revenue feels fantastic, greater friends and greater audience means that more people are getting my creativity and sharing it with the world, right? This is some of the stuff she shared with me. It's fantastic. And when that excitement builds up, it actually builds a sort of energy, a frequency inside of us. And then the subconscious mind goes, oh, that's what we want. Okay, this is a clear and easy target. And so your mind will automatically start to help to build it. And then every single step of the way, you don't even have to consciously choose certain things, because your mind subconsciously starts making easy choices along that path and finding all of the different pieces that put it together. Our minds tend to absorb close to 10,000 different impacts, sensory impacts, different things, different thoughts, different ideas, emotions, light, temperature, humidity. We absorb all of these influences around us on a moment-to-moment basis. And then there's an aspect in the mind called the reticular activating system that limits that to about 40 that is broadcast to your conscious mind. So most of the time, we are not even conscious of the choices that are moving us forward. And that's great as long as we are moving towards that yellow arrow right there, right? And here's the thing. We know that chaos sometimes happens. We know that sometimes there's a pandemic. We know that sometimes governments have trouble, economies have trouble, debtors have trouble, people trying to build things have trouble. It happens. This is part of life. Life is just sort of this flow, and sometimes there's a little chaos. And when that happens, though, because we have that big picture vision, because we know where we want to go and why we're going there, we can reconnect. We can just say, okay, great. Wherever I am now, I'm just going to keep moving towards that goal. Wherever I happen to be, I'm going to keep moving towards that goal. We also have an opportunity. We can say, look, I know exactly where I'm going with that. Maybe now is a good time to replan everything. Maybe I can say, I want to make it bigger. I want to make it better. I want to make it exciting. I want to make it so much more. And it's a perfect opportunity to leapfrog that first vision. This is actually what a lot of corporations do on an annual or biannual basis. They say, okay, great. We were heading right down this path. We were right on the target for that. Maybe they got thrown a little bit of a loop, but they say, okay, now let's plan the next step. What's beyond that? How would we take that and one up it? Right? It's fantastic because that's growth. That is what absolutely creates growth for yourself, for your brand, for your projects, everything. Constantly saying, okay, what's next? How do I imagine what's next? And how do I get there? And of course, this is a very, very popular in the tech world. You pivot. If things aren't working and aren't stacking up the way that they need to, and the world is just pushing against, maybe it's time to look in a completely different direction. Maybe it's time to say, okay, what do I need to do? I still want to have sort of that same outcome, but what do I need to change about how I'm looking at it and the world in general that will get me basically the same thing, but maybe in a completely different direction? So, this is what it gives you, is the opportunity to see an end goal and then evaluate, where am I now and where do I want to be and what do I need to do to get there? So, once we had a vision, this is the crux of what I do. This is how I help people through the branding. Is this vision is called discovery. It is discovering the vision that we want for the future. It is discovering, who the audience is, in Amber's case, who the readers are, who she is, how they connect, the people who've read the book that liked it, what was it about it that they liked, how did they feel about it, who were they themselves that this impacted them in such a way. We're trying to surface insights that can lead to growth and lead to success later on. And this is all about developing strategy and creating goals and just a whole load of clarity that says, okay, here's what's working, here's what's not working, here's what we think will work. And then once we've got that, we can develop this whole brand personality, the look, the feel, the sounds, the acts. It's the words and the pictures put together and put into action to serve the goals that create a personality. And then we take all of that and we say, great, now we're going to go ahead and create a look and a feel. We're going to create maybe a logo, a website, a series of email blasts, a brochure, maybe a video, maybe an engagement campaign that ties everything together, and it looks cohesive and it looks consistent. And because of that cohesiveness and the consistentness, it becomes a little bit sticky in people's minds because everything they see resonates with that same look and feel and personality and sound and goal. And because of that, a brand starts to really emerge in people's heads. And when they start to, refer out and share, that's when that whole, flood of success happens. And it takes a little bit of time. That's branding. It takes just a little bit of time for all of this to anchor and cement in someone's head properly. And that's the difference between brand and branding. So here, I'm just going to go through a real quick explanation to help you with brand, branding, and marketing, because these are three terms that get a little confused in people's heads, and that may not be you, but just to help you kind of understand the context of what I'm doing and what I certainly what I did with Amber and what I can do with you, and just what I do with all of my clients is, this big picture is so important, and it trickles down to all three of these different areas. So what is a brand? See, every organization, every company, every business, every service, product, every project, every person, every idea has a brand. And I know that's like, how can all of those have a brand? Right? It's what? Well, the thing is that a lot of people don't understand a brand is a person's gut feeling about a product, a service, or company. That's what Marty Neubauer says. But I just said, it's more than the product, service, or company. It's the organization, the business, the project, the person, the idea. But because it's a gut feeling, and you have gut feelings when you walk up to somebody and you start talking to them, you get a gut feeling about them. Are they friendly? Are they not friendly? Are they happy? Are they someone you might trust? That's really what a gut feeling comes down to, is this frequency between what is said and what that person hears and resonates back. And so our goal is to create this positive gut feeling about, well, in this case, Amber's book, and about Amber and about her process and about everything she's going towards and building. And a brand, you probably know this brand actually. This is a very famous global brand. But you know what? This is not the brand. The fact that you probably know it, the fact that you can probably tell me about it, shout out the name if you know it, the fact that it is so recognizable is what makes it a brand, because everybody has an experience, a feeling, something that they've done that resonates with this. This is just a logo. And the thing is that creating that gut feeling, it used to be very lengthy. Creating that idea, that feeling used to be take 10, 15, 20 years. And now, because of the internet, because of social media, because of this constant dialogue between customers, audiences, and the creators of it, is creating a brand is easier than ever. But the thing is that we can't control the process. We can just influence it. Like, you can't control how someone feels about you, but you could certainly dress up and take a shower and brush your teeth, and then maybe they might like you a little bit more, right? If you wore nice clothes, maybe they'd like you a little bit more. That is influencing the process of how they feel about you. And that goes into what creates the brand, that gut feeling. And there's an idea that brand is branding, and it's not true. Branding is the act. Branding is the process. Branding is, in the words of Debbie Millman, who started the master's program in branding in the School of Visual Arts, branding is deliberate differentiation. Branding is creating the look, the feel, the sound, the personality of this brand that is influencing others, but doing it in a way that it stands out from anybody else in your market. And that's really important for business, for capitalism, because we require competition in order to have a decent economy. And standing out and being different is what makes people start to pay attention and maybe pay a little bit more and see the value in what's being done. If you look and sound and feel like everybody else, then there's no distinguishing features that a customer would see and go, okay, well, I'll buy the cheapest one. And that is the challenge that we are trying to fight here. Branding is deliberate, and it has to be deliberate because it looks at so many different aspects of the business, the competition, the archetypes, the customers, colors even. When you think of Netflix, you think of red. When I think of Spirit Airlines, I think of yellow. When I think of Nike, I think of the swoosh. It's a shape, but it's also different than the lines of Adidas or any other. And that's the thing, is that branding is making sure that the steps that you take is different. And branding is slightly different than marketing. And the two of these play off of each other, and they share a lot of attributes. But the purpose of branding is to position yourself for the right market, the right audience, to be known as the one in your industry, because you create an enormous amount of value. Marketing is really a go-to customer tactic to introduce oneself to new people. It's about starting conversations so that somebody might buy whatever it is that you're selling. And the thing is that marketing only works in about the top 3% of an audience. Whereas branding is informative, it's supportive, it's creating this idea and this personality of the company or the product or the person, right? In this case, we're creating the idea, the brand for Amber and her book. And we did this as a unified process for her, so that at least as the first book comes out, she is identified with it, and there's consistency across the board. And branding therefore works in 97% of what is out there because it's just creating this impression in people's heads. And I'm not going to read all of this. You can come back and maybe watch this video another time. But the big idea here is that branding is why, right? It's why you do whatever it is you do, why you do the product, why you do the service, why the service exists, why a person is anywhere that they are doing. But marketing is how. Marketing is showing up and going, here's how you can get this. Here's how you can benefit. It's features and benefits. It's short-term planning. It's very tactical versus branding that is much more strategic, that is the reason somebody buys because it builds loyalty, it builds connection, it builds trust. And really, I believe that branding must precede marketing, design, and even business strategy to attract the right clients, the right customers, the right audience, and grow your brand for the long term. If you are building a company that is hoping to be a legacy company, hoping to be something that lasts a long time, and like Amber in this case, she's like, look, I would love to put out this trilogy and then another trilogy and then maybe a couple of other independent books and then see where that goes and really build up an audience that really loves this stuff and loves me and, just takes off. And she's like, I would love to get that TV deal or the movie deal, a Netflix deal, whatever that looks like. It's okay. That's a long-term goal. That's not something that just pops up and you do in the next year or two. That is a long-term 3-year, 5-year goal to be able to get that out there and have it build. That is a branding goal. So branding is really then the value proposition. It's positioning your brand in terms of the value that it brings to customers, that fulfills the needs and wants. It satisfies the idea of premium or low quality. It's never going to be low quality. As soon as you are trying to build a brand, you are premium, because the opposite of the premium brand is nothingness. It's blandness. It's filling inness, right? So it's every time you stand out, you're doing something that stands out and helps you stand apart. You are elevating that brand. It's also an elevator pitch and really the X factor. What makes you different from everybody else? And the way that broadcasts outwards is through the logo, through visuals, through brand guides, through the photos and illustrations that are used. And then branding uses the communications like brochures, websites, social media, blogging, and videos to really showcase all of those aspects, to put context around whatever this brand is, to show why it's important to the audience, and really to see how or not to see, but to show how this brand supports the audience. And all of these communication methodologies are really just different avenues to share the same kind of context and build this whole emotional feeling around it. Now, on the opposite side, marketing has two different avenues. There's inbound and outbound. And inbound marketing is like search engine optimization, where people are looking for a solution and you are trying to optimize how they find you inward. There's also content marketing, which is just writing, or it's everything online that tells people it's all about the brand, all about what's going on. It's much more focused though on features and benefits that add up to the value that you are providing. And then of course there's lead magnets, where you are providing value for like a free download. In Amber's case, what we talked about for lead magnets was something like, what if you gave away a chapter and people offered their email up and you gave them a chapter, or actually 3 chapters, because 3 chapters I think is the hook point. And if you gave them 3 chapters and said, here's the book, go ahead and buy it if you like these chapters. That is a fantastic lead magnet. I said, well, what about having somebody read an audio version, or somebody famous or locally famous read an audio version in a really exciting way, and then you gave that away on a couple different channels if people signed up. That's a fantastic lead magnet. Marketing also includes outbound marketing, which would be blind calling or cold calling, door knocking, instant messaging, or DMing. But for Amber, we weren't going to concentrate on any of that because, frankly, as part of a passion sort of idea for her and her books, that's not really where she wants to go. However, there is opportunity for this sort of outbound marketing for her. We discussed this in terms of going to like bookstores and asking how she might get on the book selling list or get in store or do a signing, or going to Comic-Con and just reaching out to different providers there and seeing who might be interested in a book like hers and actually giving away some of the books at Comic-Con or some other convention, just to gain interest, just to put the name out there, which would actually fall a little bit under networking. That's outbound and networking are really kind of, they come together a lot of times because events, networking groups, you're out there, you got to put yourself out there and talk to people, and it's scary. So how do we plan all this? How do we start building that emotional connection so that we can start branding and then take the branding through the marketing and get it to the clients? Well, we use what's called brand strategy. And brand strategy is a carefully devised plan for achieving a goal, right? That's what strategy is anyway. Only our goal is creating that emotional bond with our customers, our audience, whoever they might be. In this case, the readers of the book or potential readers of the book, potential readers of the whole trilogy. And the goal is to build a consistent, trusted, emotional connection over time. That is the goal of any business. That is the goal of any business person. That is the goal of any product, any service, is to build a consistent, trusted, emotional connection over time. If not, then what a business or service is aiming for is short-term wins, which are fads. And fads go out of fashion. If you're one person that likes to ride fads, that's fantastic. I am one who helps build a vision and long-term success. And long-term success relies on building the consistent, trusted, emotional connection, because that's what builds a tribe. That's what builds a community. People who start to think and feel the same things are a community. And when communities come together, they can do transformative things for a business, for a economy, for everything. It's fantastic, and that's my goal. Is the vision is powerful enough that it starts to really coalesce into a tribe. So Simon Sinek actually said something about brand strategy. He said, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So really, that's the brand strategy. We are building something so that people understand why you do it, right? That's the emotional connection. That's in the brain, there's a section of the brain called the limbic brain. It's also the reptile brain. It's the oldest section of our brain, actually. And what that does is that controls a lot of the emotional context of the information that passes through us. So it helps us identify, do we feel good about that? Do we feel bad about that? And when you explain to someone why you do something, it triggers synapses in that area of the brain that give them an emotion. And that, it turns out, is a much greater motivator of purchase than any feature, any benefit at all. And we think of that emotion, that context of why, as value. That is the value that we perceive. And in this case, we're looking to figure out the value of Amber's books, her writing, and her own personal brand that she's bringing to her audience. So the brand attributes that I worked with Amber, and again, if you're interested in the process, look up Manifest Design Experience on Facebook. Ask to join the free group. You can actually go through guides and do this process for yourself, or you can hire me at ThinkTankCreative.net. Just go ahead right on there. And part of this is the brand attributes. So the brand attributes for Amber's book, Ember in Shadows, is a strong female lead. That's super important to her, is not just a strong character, not just a strong woman, but strong woman lead. Someone who is really powerful and leading the story. Women power, woman power, absolutely. Fantasy, she kept saying, look, there's a lot of romance in here, but this is a fantasy novel about a woman who is going through a lot, and she is strong, and she will make it through and dominate all the men around with, that are around her. Family was super important to her. ideals, in particular conflicting ideals. That's how you build challenge and conflict in a book, right? You make sure that lots of characters have differing opinions, and then that drives the story. And then confidence, because you have the strong female character and a lot of woman power, and that's just building through confidence. So that leads to the brand positioning. And brand positioning is sort of like, how can we describe this book, this feel, this brand in terms of just a couple words that we can translate into a visual that works with the brand attributes, that works with the brand statement, but is a way for us to kind of, I don't know, it's just a shortcut way of saying what it is. And what we came up with was approachable and elegant. So Ember and Shadows, the way that we want to project it through a website, the way we want to show it through any marketing, through any sorts of the cover design, is really approachable but elegant. So really, we want something to class it up, but we also want people to look at it and go, yeah, I can resonate with that. I feel like I can just walk right up and read that. So the brand strategy that we came up with, the statement we came up with using the brand attributes is Ember and Shadows offers a strong female lead to fantasy fans in a romance environment with a confident tone, entertaining readers with tales of longing, relationships, upheaval, and combating ideals, all while lovingly making characters feel like family. Which, family is a give or take. That's great. They feel like family, and also, oh, they feel like family. That's the challenge, but that's also fantastic for a book like this. It's like Lord of the Rings mixed with some romance in there. It's like, yeah, that's family, all right. So the thing is that we know that everybody really cares about the brand. And the way that we know that is because if you don't say anything about it and somebody hates it, that means they cared. They cared enough to form an opinion. And the thing is that everybody has an opinion. They can look at a cover and form an opinion. They can look at it on Amazon and have an opinion. And that's why we know they care. Because when they look at something, they have something to say about it. It's very rare that someone says, well, I have no opinion whatsoever. It's if you can ask about specific things and people can start to dissect. No, it's not that they don't have an opinion. They don't have an opinion overall, but maybe they don't like type. Maybe they don't like the colors. Maybe everybody has an opinion. And that's important because your brand is not what you say it is. Your brand is what they say it is. Remember, you cannot control the process of creating this brand feeling. You can only influence it. So, we know that everybody has an opinion and that it's our job to sort of influence it to get them to say what they believe the brand is from their point to us. And hopefully it's, approachable. Hopefully it's fantasy. Hopefully it's romance. Hopefully it's all of these different things. So I use a couple different techniques when developing brand strategy, when developing positioning. One is the demographics and psychographics of an audience. And for Amber's audience, what we came up with is the reader, who is a female, approximately 28 to 45, although we do have broad ranges on both sides of that sort of allow targeting through marketing, through Facebook, through all these different things. But this is a sweet spot to really talk about. And the income, goes from the low end to the mid end. This is not something that has to be super rich. A book is not expensive, and that was the way that Amber really looked at it. This shouldn't be an expensive thing. This should be something that causes people to escape into a fantasy world and something that people really just love to dive into. And that's how we kind of came up with like this audience. She wants her imagination to run away. She wants to dive into something. She wants to really experience it. The other way that I love to work with avatars and audiences is through the idea of archetypes. And archetypes are universally understood patterns of behavior. And came about with Carl Jung, sort of looking at all these different cultures and looking at the way that people manifest stories, and Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, and really understanding that we all have these ideas of who people are, who we are. And there's 12 different archetypes that pull together to create sort of ways of looking at the world and interfacing with it. And the archetypes we're using for Ember and Shadows are the warrior. Of course, the warrior is like the hero, but a little more fighty. That's how I look at it. And that, of course, is really twofold. This is the reader who's reading it, who wants to feel like the warrior, who wants to feel like there's battle and they're overcoming it. but it's also the characters in the story that the people are resonating with. And that's why the warrior is so powerful, is because the person is placing the person who's reading it is placing their consciousness into the mind of the character who is the warrior, this strong female character, and moving away forward. And the other archetype that we're using is the lover. And that really has to do with the romance sections of the book and finding oneself and exploring the sensual, the soothing, the sometimes violence, all of those feelings that come up with romance and sex and love. That's the secondary archetype. And the way that we use this is we tend to focus more with the warrior. At about 80% of what we talk about is with the warrior. This is a driving story of conflict and fantasy and armies and all these different things coming together. But you know what? About 1/5 of the messaging we say, but there are moments of quiet and repose and seduction and intimacy that help really drive the story, but also drive conflict. And I find that the combination of audience and archetypes really creates a personality and helps us understand the audience personality so that all of the marketing moving forward is targeted, consistent, and effective. So next we move on to design strategy. Once we have that brand strategy, the audience, the archetypes, the positioning sort of figured out, we've already looked at some competition. We've analyzed. I'm not showing it on here because it'd take way too long to go through, but we've analyzed a ton of mood boards at this point with Amber, and we've identified trends that she likes, ideas that make her feel like it's right in line with where she wants to go with the trilogy of books, as well as her own website and her own brand. We've looked at the cover, and we've decided on a layout. We've decided on colors. And so a design strategy is pulling all of those mood boards, all those elements together. And this is what we have right here. And there's a reason why this is where we're kind of going with it. And what we see is that in the cover reference, we're really going to start with this idea. This is a movie poster with Reese Witherspoon, Chris Pine, and Bane. I can just think of that guy's name as Bane. Using that sort of pose as a central focus on the book cover, and then replacing Reese Witherspoon with this redheaded woman, and replacing each of the other characters with these ideal illustrations. And Amber really wanted not photography, but illustration. And the way that we looked at it is through all the different mood boards, the style reference we are using. We say, look, this is a dark, realistic, fantasy illustrative. So it can look realistic, but Amber's really looking more for some of the artistic brushwork, some of the attributes and colors that go along with more of the fantasy illustrative sort of look. And that will carry through with the website and with the different novels at the same time. And this also allowed us to examine colors that were working in different contexts, in different contents, and say, okay, we are choosing a palette that is reflective of some of the ideas of like this glowing stuff that is really popular on covers right now, as well as soft lighting, as well as the fantasy stuff. And so this is what we presented as the final mood board to say, look, these are all the pieces that we like. Now, how can we use these in an intelligent way, bringing it together for the cover? So the cover design strategy, and for this we actually reached out to or after this point, we reached out to illustrators and said, okay, is this something you can do? And everybody was like, yes, this is fantastic. This gives us perfect direction. But I know personally, my illustration skills are not up to snuff to do an effective cover that sells based on all of this. So really, we're going to the experts who are specialists in that sort of dark, realistic, fantasy, illustrative cover sort of thing. And so on our left, what we're looking at is the layout context in terms of where her name would be, where the title might be, where the layout of the people would be, and sort of like pulling together the faces just to give us an idea of what that looks like. And part of the shadows in Ember and Shadows has to do with this idea that the shadows have this smoky, slinky sort of dimensional quality that are fearful and anxiety inducing within the novels themselves, but end up to be a really powerful, I'm not sure if it's a magic or effect or the power of somebody or what, but it's something that has, it becomes a character in its own right in the story. And so I really wanted to showcase this is what we were thinking. And Amber loved this effect here and said, yes, that's what I want to see on the cover. That's what I want to see tracing around and through the things. So I included it here just as a demonstration of, look, here's how that ties in. Here's what we want to see. And of course, there's the visual inspirations to show any illustrator that comes up, look, here's how you can kind of build this, here's how you can use these pieces, here's how you might use the colors as they come together. And then the color map is something I added in because my background as a fine artist, studying that all through high school and college, I know that certain color combinations stand out to perception. And looking at the colors that are on most books, it's very dark with one punch of color, or it's very bland, and like this, even this broken sword cover right here up on the top, it's very bland. It just kind of falls away, and compared to other books on the shelves, it just doesn't stand out a whole lot. And so I developed this color map to say, look, if the illustrator follows this concept of the color map and integrates the positions of the people in these three sort of egg shapes and builds with the shadows in it and the type kind of there at the bottom, this will be a very dynamic cover. It will be something we can use in the marketing materials. It can be something, not just the cover, but pretty much everything across the board. And as you can see on the right, here's our brand attributes so that we can help, this is fantastic to show the people doing the covers, the actual covers, the actual illustration. Here's our brand attributes. This is what we are trying to embrace through the layout, through the design, through the choices in the character illustrations. And these are the color palettes that we have. You can see the background even is part of this color palette. And even the next slide, you'll see it is this color palette broken out and used in different ways. Oh, and here it is. And okay, I'll start on the left and move to the right. So on the left, you can see approachable, elegant. That's what we're going for. That's the feel that we want to give. And now we're moving beyond the book cover itself, moving into marketing, moving into even beyond that, the idea of products, the idea of things that sustain a brand long term. So in terms of the colors here, yellow is bright and powerful. Purple, this kind of magenta-y purple, is royal, mysterious, and caring also. And these sharply contrasting colors denote class with a hint of foreboding and a touch of drama. And that totally goes with the idea of family, strong women, combating ideals, upheaval, confidence, beginnings. Like, it tells that story simply through the use of these few colors. And even though she doesn't have the cover illustrated yet, I went ahead and dropped in a few different samples here across the board to say, look, right here at the top, there's, what if we put that book cover with this kind of cool background, and you use that on Facebook to advertise, and then we put it in a flyer with a little bit of text, and you took that to Barnes and Nobles and kind of posted it in restrooms or Starbucks so other people could read, this and order the book for themselves. And last, what if it's on an iPad? What does that book cover look like? And then beyond that, the idea, that big picture vision that I was talking about, what happens when you're done with the cover? Is it just this book, or do you want to keep moving forward? She said, I want to keep moving forward. Great. How do we do that? Well, she said, well, we could do bookmarks or stickers or things like that. And I said, okay, great. How about we do bookmarks? But if we're going to go for the approachable, elegant sort of idea, bookmarks should be upgraded. Bookmarks should be more premium, like wooden bookmarks. Or maybe we have these cloth printed bags that have the whole characters printed on them. That was something that Twilight actually started doing. And we said, if we're doing that, Square Enix always does these neat stickers for their characters. And why don't you do stickers? Make people believe in the different characters in the cover and create stickers so that people can buy packs of stickers on your website, or buy these bags on your website. And if you've got houses, if it's a fantasy setting, you've got houses or tribes or clans, we could do circular patches that represent each of the different clans, and people can put that on and support the clan that they actually believe in. And the other part of that, Outlander has become a huge television show, and all those books by Diane Gabaldon. And people love buying clothes that are inspired by, or now they've got the label on it that is Outlander or Gabaldon or whatever it is, inspired. I said, why don't we look at lines of clothes that people could buy and wear and feel at one with the characters in your story? You've got this great crown that you've got this kind of armor thing going on, and these other guys who are combative and kind of funky looking. What if you invested in research that you could just offer those clothes up and people could buy it and feel like they were participating in your story. And she really loved that idea, and that's kind of what we're showing here in the top portion. I said, in the future, there's lots of opportunities as you release these books to kind of expand with different items that are really capitalizing on the fantasy culture, capitalizing on what people like, as well as in the romance culture, because people want to support their favorite authors. People really want to buy the things and live the life of the story. So, we said, what if there's a wooden mug that they could buy and it would be really cool, and on one side it has a logo of the books or the trilogy, and what if there's this water bottle that has a cool crystal in it and it energizes the water, and maybe there's a hoodie that is a secret sort of society hoodie, I don't know, or a leather pouch or purse or a bag, things that people can collect things in. And this just gives everybody who reads the book, who enjoys the book, or just wants to support the book, even if they don't want the book on the bookshelves, this gives them other things that they can order from your website that help them take the next steps and start to embrace it and own it. And at the same time, of course, we could do banners and tablecloths and other things so that you can set up at different shows and author shows, signing places, and have everything that is branded for you. And you could bring some of these knickknacks, you could bring some of these tchotchkes and bookmarks or patches or bags or whatever and sell them there. And it gives you just opportunity moving down the line. It's not just a book. It's not just trying to write a next book or figure out how to do the next audio book, or trying to figure out how to reissue the book, not just as an independent, but as part of a trilogy. Like, you can do all of those things, and that is the standard play for books when they get too old and they're looking for a little bit more revenue. But this way, there's opportunity beyond that. And she loved that. So, then we kind of said, okay, let's go ahead and take everything that we know about the brand, what we know about the archetypes, what we know about the images that we have, and the style that we have, and that's what we have. That's what we're looking at here. Is all of that put together in terms of the warrior, the lover. On the left is that brand statement saying, what is this about? Well, what's it about? It's about a strong female lead in a fantasy environment, with confident tone and entertaining readers. It's just that statement. But when someone says, what's it about? I told Amber, just read this statement or say this statement, memorize this statement, and tell them this, instead of saying, well, first the character wakes up and has to do this, and then they have to do that, because that is a common thing that authors fall into, is describing every scene in the book, because they've lived it, they've owned it, they've written it. And so this gives them a way to talk about the book that intrigues others without giving away everything. And then, of course, the elevator pitch is really, that's what over here in the lover section. If you're a woman who loves fantasy and romance stories with strong female characters, then buy this book. That's the elevator pitch. It's nice, it's short, it says quite a bit, and is just really easy to describe to anybody. Is this book for me? Well, if you're a woman and you love this, or even if you're a man, the thing is, saying one little audience allows everybody else to say, okay, well, let me give it a try. But that audience is targeted. That is what a niche is all about, is specifying for one audience and kind of letting everybody else discover it if they feel like it. And as you can see, we have the little smoke thing coming in, because that is part of the story here. And over on the right hand side, we're actually showing the extended audiences that I talked about. So slightly older women and slightly younger girls. Amber was very specific in stating, in high school she read a lot of romance novels, and I said, okay, that's great. Let's include that audience in, but we're going to put it as a tertiary audience, because let's focus on this one that we talked about, that is your ideal growth audience. It is the one you said you would like most. And we also talked about, what happens with fantasy novels and fantasy stories is you need a map, you need illustrations that feel right. And so we've given a couple examples here of a map that feels right. I'm not sure if this is from anything. I think it's just a map maker, fantasy map maker, that we found that felt like it was right, and she's actually contacting and having them make a map. And then there, of course, the illustration is just something soft and gentle, fantasy-like, that really seemed like it fit in the environment. So now that we've got all of that figured out, in our process, we've got action steps. We've got things that are the next steps that have to be taken. So, for example, these are awareness, revenue, and efficiency. For awareness, for Amber, we said, look, it's really easy. You said you've already started this, so create a Spotify inspiration playlist, because you can start advertising through this playlist before the book is even out. If people like the type of music is there, and that's what you listened that inspired each scene, then share that out and let people start signing on and getting samples of the feel, so that when they read the book, they're already in it. And then, of course, offering sample chapters and just lots of other things that help increase the awareness of the book before it's even out, before it's even happened yet. There's opportunities to just spend a little bit of time and energy talking and working and doing some things and getting it out there. And for the revenue, of course, finish the book and put it online, create a website that sells it, maybe create other items to sell. We talked about an upgraded map, something that could be hung in a frame on a wall, as well as secondary items like I showed you guys, like the bookmarks, and maybe an audio version. So there's lots of ideas that we had that she could use to increase revenue, and the whole point of increasing revenue is not just to have something else to sell, it's to have something else to sell that is interesting for people, that helps them relive parts of the story. And if we've seen anything with the books that have become television shows and movies, movie studios capitalize on this stuff all the time with cups and mugs and custom clothing and bags and just you name it, right? And we want to start doing that for books. If you're an author, you should start thinking about the entire capacity that you can offer. That's the same thing that the movie studios or Netflix or television studios are doing, or Disney is doing. Everything they do has multiple items behind it that they can offer to people that support that same idea. And so authors, this is what I told Amber, authors need to be doing the same thing. Don't just crank through books. I mean, that's fantastic. But if you look at Stephen King, like there's tons of things that are inspired by his books that he doesn't get any money for. He's, rich as heck. But, if he had started like selling just little things that inspired and felt good with his books, he'd probably be a lot richer. And then, of course, for efficiency for Amber, we were like, great, create a series of welcome emails so that when people sign up for the list and it's automated, it goes right to them. Just do that once, have it done so that we can just implement it within an easy email system, and then upgrade the website to make sure that you're not managing all of that stuff yourself. And then because it's just her doing this, I said maybe as things start to take off, you can look at a part-time virtual assistant so that you can focus on writing and finishing the third book or the next book or the next book, and you can have your team building out some of the social media and some of the other aspects. Time is money, really. And when you are the key person, the key creative person building things for other people, in this case, she's the one writing, she can't really outsource that. So finding part-time people, part-time assistants to help build that stuff is super important so that it frees her to do the thing that is intrinsically needing her to do. And that's the biggest thing is just, do something great. And so from here, the reason, not the reason, but I said, Amber, I want to help you. I want to take the next step with you, and I am here to support you. I appreciate that we just did this entire process. And she felt so surprised, happy, delighted, like that she's letting me share this all with you guys at this whole process. And I said, I really want to help you more, but I am not an illustrator for this stuff, and I am not the one to help. And I think the best thing I can do is direct you at the 3 or 4 different companies out there who are doing an exceptional job in this, and it's well within your budget to work with these companies. So I went through hundreds and hundreds of companies online and narrowed it down to a few that seemed right for her budget, for her momentum, for her timing. And just so you can see what that looks like from my angle, Yokla. The reason it's important is I want your covers to sell. That is important. When you find a company and you're an author, you want your covers to sell. So giving them what we've provided and seeing that they want to sell, super important. That is a huge connection to help success jumpstart, right? Create indie covers. What you think you need, a book cover that matches your story. What you actually need, I'm reading down at the bottom, what you actually need, a book cover that will attract your audience. Again, because it needs to sell. That's what creates momentum, is the sales. So these guys do fantastic covers. Yokla does fantastic covers. They're just amazing and beautiful and huge capabilities here. Pretty big companies actually working through this stuff. And the last one was TS95, who I think is actually who she's going with at the moment. I'll find out when I see the final artwork to the cover, because they do a lot of illustrative covers, and you can see Shadows Fire here, and that is a sample kind of idea of what they're going for and what they're doing, and it's just good work. They do fantastic stuff. And that's the important part, is finding a good match for my clients once we figure out that good overall vision. Sometimes I'm a good match for it, sometimes I'm not. I want my clients to find the best services, to meet their needs to reach their goals. And for me, it's really it's about being bold, fearless, and brilliantly you. Amber is brilliantly herself. She is stepping forward, she is stepping out, she's creating this passion project of her trilogy, her fantasy romance trilogy. And I am so thrilled to be able to help her build this greater overall vision, identify an audience, identify some attributes, figure out how to really take this stuff, and with the colors, with the ideas, the pictures, she's using all of this now in building a website, in building marketing materials, in finding other items to help her. I think there's postcards and stickers and other things to really help her take the next steps in her journey. And she's reaching out to these other companies to help her with the illustration. And man, she is just thrilled with the idea that now she knows where she's going. Now she has this vision of what this can be and how big it can be, and she is automatically taking these steps because even if it seems slow, even if things are kind of rough sometimes, she is taking the steps forward step by step with this as guidance, and I can't wait to see her success. So look for her book soon, Ember in Shadows. Take care, and thank you so much.